All right, so we're gonna get started here. I'm sure we'll have a few more people trickle in within the next couple of minutes, but we're just gonna get going here on BioRender 101. So first of all, thank you guys all for joining. We've got a pretty good sized group today, so appreciate you guys all taking out the time of your day to come and join us here. It's just after noon here in Canada. I'm not sure where the rest of you guys are located, but we're just going to get started. So we kind of like to start these things off here to get to know you guys a little bit better. So I'm going to launch a quick poll here. Let me see. A poll. And it's just going to ask you a couple questions about where your study of work or your research is, and then your experience with BioRender, just so that we can get to know you guys a little bit better. I'm going to let that sit in the background for a couple of minutes while we start off with the first couple of slides. But before we really get into things, I just want to give a quick introduction. So my name's Jacqueline. I am an account executive here with BioRender. I'm going to be kind of walking you through the beginning portion of today's presentation. And then I'm also joined with my colleague Lucas, who is also an account executive here at BioRender. And he's going to kind of be walking you through the second, more interactive demo portion of the presentation. And then we also have Cindy here as well, and she's going to kind of help with the Q&A question box, so we can make sure that we get all your questions answered throughout the presentation. Okay, so like I was just talking about that Q&A, if you guys have any questions throughout the demo today, feel free to post them in the question box. Just make sure that you click to all panelists and attendees if you want to share your message with the room, because assuming if you have the question, other people will too as well, so we can answer it there. And then between myself, Lucas, and Cindy, we'll make sure to have your questions answered throughout. So just a quick overview of what we're going to be covering today. So we're going to start off with who we are here at BioRender, kind of who we are, how we came to be, and then we're going to get into a demonstration / tutorial of the actual product, which I'm sure many of you guys there, that's what you came here to come and watch. And then we're going to get into a Q&A. But again, like I had mentioned before, feel free to ask questions throughout. We're more than happy to answer them as we go. So I'm going to stop this poll here. It looks like we've got almost everyone who's answered it. And we've got a lot of biochemists in the room. Let's end the poll. Share these results. And, molecular and cell biologists. It's really cool to see the different people that we have, but a wide range of different people. It seems like we've got also some different experiences with BioRender. So this is great. We'll definitely walk you through everything today. Okay, so just to get into things, I'm guessing most people, or almost everyone on this webinar today, really knows the pain of making a figure in PowerPoint. So, you'll spend years doing your research, months writing up your manuscript, and then once it comes time to actually making your figure to explain your research, you open up PowerPoint and you make something that looks like this. Now, I know that this looks fairly elementary, but if any of you guys have actually used PowerPoint, I'm sure that you can understand how painful and how much of a time suck that something like this can be to create. Or maybe you pull off some pieces from Google and then you layer your own squiggles and shapes on top of it, and you create something that looks like this. It kind of is, I wouldn't say it's super cohesive. It's kind of a mishmash of different things and really gives you that Frankenstein look. But again, it does take quite a bit of time to create. Again, here's just another example of an image that we found that was created off of PowerPoint. But we can't really blame you for doing it this way, because really, unfortunately, up until now, there hasn't been any easy way for scientists to illustrate their research. And therefore, PowerPoint has really become that standard go-to software in order to do so. We actually estimate that scientists collectively waste over 1 billion hours per year making scientific figures in a software that really isn't designed to do so. And now that's obviously a huge problem. And we knew there had to be a better way. And so we created BioRender. So BioRender makes it easy for all scientists, regardless of your artistic ability, to create professional, repeatable graphics in literally just a couple of minutes. We have a library of over 40,000 scientifically accurate icons. You can kind of get a sneak peek of this on the left-hand side of this little video here. But you can browse through these, drag and drop them onto your canvas, and you can make very beautiful figures that look like this in literally just a couple of minutes. Now, beyond the time savings in making figures, it also helps really to create a standard and consistent visual language of research that's being done at a specific institute. So, it doesn't matter who made it. It could be different people within the lab, different people across departments. A neutrophil is really going to look the same no matter who created your figure. Here's another example of something that you can create in BioRender. Here we have an intracellular mechanism, which again, it's using BioRender makes it quite simple to make. And then here's just one last example of something that you can create in BioRender. And to our surprise, this was actually one of the biggest, most popular use cases of BioRender, illustrating protocols like this. So because there is typically, these are very complex to understand when you're reading it, having this visual language really makes it easier for the reader to understand. Now, beyond the three major use cases, that includes presentations, publications, and posters, that I'm sure many of you guys are looking to use BioRender for. We actually see people using it for a ton of different other use cases that, previously maybe they didn't use graphics for, simply because there wasn't any easy way to do so. So here's some other use cases on the right-hand side, but something we've been seeing quite often during COVID and everyone working from home has been lab and team meetings. So just to make sure that people stay connected virtually and through their computers. Same thing with like email updates. It's a great way to make sure that your lab stays connected. You can send things visually that way. So really anywhere that you can use graphics to help explain a scientific concept, you can use BioRender to make it much more simple and more clear to communicate. So here's just one final story to really drive home the impact of effective graphics and what they can do to your work. And those are the things that really make us happy as here at BioRender and gets us going. So it comes from a researcher here at the University of Toronto who submitted a manuscript 1 month to the Journal of Immunity. And once she submitted her manuscript, the editor came back to her and said, they'd accept the manuscript. It was really great science, but they wouldn't be able to publish it with this figure. So she submitted it with this figure on the left-hand side, which in her words took about 10 hours to create in PowerPoint. But they said it was too complex, not very clear, and she needed to resubmit it with a better figure. And then at that point, they would be able to publish it. Now, this was about 2 weeks before the deadline for that issue. So she really didn't have an extra 10 hours to be able to spend in PowerPoint, nor necessarily did she have the skills to create something that looks better than this figure on the left-hand side. So thankfully, one of her grad students knew about BioRender. She created this image in the middle here, which in her words said it took about 10 minutes. They resubmitted the manuscript that very same week, and not only were they accepted to the journal, they were actually given the cover for that issue. So you'll see that on the right-hand side here. So really just an amazing turnaround from essentially being outright rejected from the journal to be given the highest honor for that month. And like I said, these are the stories we love to hear here at BioRender, and we're really excited to hopefully hear some similar stories from you guys soon. So now I'm going to pass things over to Lucas, and he's going to get going on the demo portion.
Awesome. Thank you, Jacqueline, for that intro, and thank you everyone for joining us today. As Jacqueline mentioned, my name is Lucas. I just shared my screen. Can someone please type in chat? Just confirm that you're seeing it. Don't want to do too much with, okay, perfect. Looks like everyone can see it then. Awesome. So yeah, I will kind of walk you through BioRender. We'll be creating kind of a basic figure today. If we've got some time at the end, I will also create like a graphical protocol or something similar. Definitely, we want to keep this as interactive as possible. So please, if you do have any questions or want to see something while I am walking through this, feel free to type it in the chat or in the Q&A box. Again, if you are going to type it in the chat, please, if possible, send it to all panelists and attendees. That way, we're not getting like questions from the same questions from multiple people. Generally speaking, if you have the question, someone else does too. So just want to make sure everyone is kind of, on the same page. But awesome. So we can get started now. This is the screen you'll see when you go to log into BioRender. It might look a bit different if you have access through your company or your school. We do kind of offer institutional licensing where we create like an individual login. So if that's the case, feel free to reach out to support if you're not sure if your school has a license. You can reach out to support with this little chat button in the bottom right. Just send us a message, they'll let you know. But I will just log in here. Awesome. And here we go. This is what you'll see when you log in. It might be kind of reminiscent of a Google Drive or something similar. Basically what I have here, this is called what we call the gallery view. Here's a list of every image I've created in the past. I can go into any of them. I can edit them further. Really make whatever changes I need to or export them to use in a presentation or a poster or a publication, really any other way you might use visuals. But yeah, just want to kind of specify that they are all fully editable at any point in the future once you do create it. Across the top here are two kind of ways to get started in BioRender. We can start with a blank illustration or we can start with a template. I'll actually browse templates really quickly here just to give you a kind of sense of what kind of things are available in our platform. Many scientists find that this is a really helpful way to just hit the ground running. These are kind of commonly used images or commonly used starting points that have been created and vetted by our scientific design team and are all fully editable. So if I were to say, start with this tumor vascularization, I can go in and edit any of these individual pieces. We'll get into that a bit more towards the end of the call, but in the meantime, what I'll do is I'll start with a blank illustration here in the top left. I'll call this my first illustration. I can change the name of it and the size of it at any point in the future, so I'm not too worried about it. Let's just jump right into it. Awesome. So just to kind of get aligned here, this center, this white area is of course the canvas. This is where you'll be working with everything. On the left side here, you have our icons, templates, brushes, really all of your major tools that you use. And then across the top bar, we have kind of our add-ins, things like lines and shapes and text. It's also a contextual toolbar. So I'll show you in a moment once I do start working with some of these icons that the tools available to you across this top bar change depending on what you're working with. A couple other things, I mean, you can show a grid if you do want to work within grids. And then one quick little tip here before we get into it is keyboard shortcuts, because I will probably be using some of these. Just a really quick and easy way to be even more proficient in BioRender. But yeah, let's get right into it. So Across this left side here is our icon library. We have, as Jacqueline mentioned, over 40,000 scientifically accurate icons. They're all categorized, so I can go in and just browse through various pieces of it. Maybe I want a, what do I want? Let's do a T cell here. Okay. So they're all categorized, but they're also all searchable. So if I did have a specific thing I was looking for, I can really easily do so. Maybe I want a cancer cell. Awesome, yeah, that looks good. Yeah, so we'll show like a cell-to-cell interaction to start off here. We'll change it up kind of towards the end, but let's just get started. So here you see I have two icons on the screen. As I mentioned before, this top bar does change depending on what you're working with. So you can see if I have nothing selected, there's not really much up there. But if I click in, I have a whole bunch of different options. So maybe let's change the colors here to, just for the sake of this, let's add maybe this one. I like that color. And we'll leave this one as is. Great. So this is kind of the starting point of our cell-to-cell interaction. We probably need a couple other things, maybe some receptors. So let's search for a TCR. Perfect. Drag this one out. I can resize it really easily and rotate it to make sure it's all scientifically accurate. Add that there maybe. Maybe we also want an MHC. Okay, yeah, that works. Same thing. I'll resize it, rotate it, and put it on the cell. Awesome. Maybe we also want a TAA. Sorry. Let's go with like a generic receptor, circle shape. That's kind of what I'm looking for here. You can see the color scheme here isn't exactly right in line with the cell that I'm working with. So maybe we want to go in and change the colors here. I'll go with like a red, and I'll show you what I'm doing here in just a moment as well. You can see I kind of clicked into that and was able to change each piece individually. I'll show that in just a second. But let's say this is, this cell looks pretty good to me. What I'll do then is, I like how this cancer cell looks. So I'll actually select all of the pieces that are associated with it, and I'm going to group them together. Again, I said I was going to be using some hotkeys. That one there was just Control-click to select multiple icons at the same time, similar to how you might do it in other softwares. Awesome. So I'm actually going to rotate this cell around for the sake of this. Now I want to group these together as well. Again, that's Control-click, and I'll group them. And I want to add another receptor here. Okay, this is a great example to show how we have two kind of different types of icons here. So you can see these two icons, they look the same. But this one I have selected right now has a purple bounding box around it, and it says double-click to edit group, whereas this one has just a standard blue bounding box. So this purple bounding box means it's what we call a grouped icon, or essentially it's an icon made up of icons. So I can double click into it and edit each piece further. So if I wanted to show maybe just this piece as its own color, and maybe I want this one to be the same, I can really easily do so and then save that as a single icon and use it in the future. But I'm actually going to undo those changes. I kind of want a single cohesive color for this one. So I'll drag this around. Maybe it's interacting here. And there we go. And again, just for the sake of the color scheme, I'll update it to maybe, let's get something with a bit more contrast than that. Something like this, and then it matches the receptor on the other side of this cell. Perfect. Awesome. So as you can see, I kind of just put together a really quick, pretty quick and dirty cell-to-cell interaction in a couple minutes. I mean, I think that was something around 4 or 5 minutes. And we've got a pretty good starting point, right? Now, presumably this doesn't tell your whole story. I'm sure you'd want to be showing a couple other things that are happening here. You probably will also want to add some labels to it, but maybe let's go. So maybe we want to show that these cells binding create some sort of response that goes, a signal into the nucleus. So how do we do that? Well, our illustration team spent a lot of time working with arrows. It's something that's overlooked in most science illustrations, but they are really effective at helping you tell your story. So across this top bar here, you can see this insert line tool. We have a whole bunch of different types of arrows. It can be a little overwhelming, but that's not, don't worry about it. You can change them all in the future. That's one great thing about BioRender is you're really able to make any change really easily down the line. But maybe we want to show, let's do a 90-degree arrow going into the nucleus, something like that. And I'll actually flip it. Yeah, let's do that. Sorry, actually, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to swap. This is kind of a, as I'm saying, like you can really customize these lines. So you can see on the top bar, again, that contextual toolbar, I can change the tail to an arrow, that other end, and get rid of the head, make it a nothing. And that's probably more in line with what I want to show. Awesome. I'm actually going to, no, I'll leave that as is. Now, we're showing a signal going into the nucleus. Maybe we want to also add some DNA to it. Again, just, DNA is in the nucleus. Awesome. Oh, here's another actually really cool type of icon we have. I mean, I know I mentioned the kind of standard icons where it's a single pre-drawn icon that you just drag and resize and change color. I mentioned those grouped icons where you can make further edits to it. There's one other type of icon in BioRender, and that's what we call brushes. So that's indicated by this little blue paintbrush when you're browsing through our icon library. This is actually a premium feature, or some of the brushes are premium features actually, so it might not all be available to everyone, but it's a really cool feature. I'm just gonna resize it to fit into the nucleus here. But basically, I'm able to extend the length of this DNA, change the shape of this DNA, really have a ton of customization options to it without actually skewing anything. So I know, I'm sure many of you have kind of created like a phospholipid bilayer in PowerPoint, and you do a circle and a line, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. And then you realize, oh, it's not long enough. I'll just stretch it out. And you end up with like kind of a skewed look. So these brushes actually let you just, if I drag this node at the end here, I'm just going to drag it out, and you can see it extends the DNA without changing the aspect ratio at all. So it looks really nice, makes it look really professional. And on top of that, I'm able to actually change the shape of it significantly as well. So if I just drag one of these nodes, you can see here I'm kind of stretching it around in all sorts of wacky shapes. And it just snaps into a very good looking place. You can see if I do this on this curve here, it looks like there's kind of a disjointed piece. But when I release, it actually snaps into place and looks like a single proper strand of DNA. So I'm actually just going to delete this and drag a new one in. Let's do something like that, maybe a bit smaller. And I'll drag it out to show that some kind of weird shape maybe. Maybe shrink it down a bit more to make it fit. Awesome. And now, because we are showing that something's signaling, maybe we want to actually also add some text to it to show that this is, make it a bit more clear. I mean, we certainly want to make sure everyone is kind of in full understanding of what's going on here. So maybe I'll click this text box at the top, add in, say this is signaling. And maybe I want to decrease the size a little bit, size 11, say. I'll actually take the capital off. And I'll drag that into here, just kind of label it. Awesome. Now, just to kind of finish off this portion of the story, maybe this signaling causes the release of some cytokines. So I'll just, again, just search through the library, cytokines. I'll drag this out. Oh. Okay. And then we'll add another arrow to show that motion is happening. So this is another, again, when I mentioned that kind of arrows really help to tell the story, here's a great example of it. I'll flip this to show that. You can see this arrow I've added. It has this kind of like faded tail. It's a really good way to show that something is moving in your story and isn't just you know, like a signaling cascade or something like that, showing that something is actually moving within the cellular environment. I'll add a bit of width to this just to make it a bit clearer. Maybe shrink this down a bit. And I'll also change the color of it just to match with the rest of the kind of color scheme we have here. Awesome. So that seems like a pretty good, I mean, nearly completed figure. Maybe we want to do a bit more labeling here, so I'll just add some more text around. Let's do like let's let people know this is the T cell. And again, I'll bold that. I used some hotkeys there, but if you want to just, again, this contextual menu across the top, you just hit the bold button. And again, it's keyboard shortcuts here. It's the same as what you'll see in most other software. So that was just Control B or Command B on a Mac. I'll change the color of it. Awesome. And then we also want people to know that this is a tumor cell. And again, I'll bold it. And I'll select the color here to just keep it in line. Awesome. So I think we've got a pretty good starting point here. Or could be an end point depending on how deep you want to go. I'll take a quick pause here to see if there are any questions that have been asked. Doesn't look like there's many. I see Yulia has asked, can I see all the layers at once in a menu? Not at the moment. You can't see like specific layers. It's really, you kind of have to click through what's in your screen. But yes, as Cindy mentioned, that's, oh, it was in a message to all panelists, but it is a really good feature suggestion. Definitely something we'll pass on to our product team. Awesome. Doesn't look like there are many questions then. So, all right. we've got a pretty good starting point. Here's our kind of power user feature, I like to say. I've done this once. Maybe this is kind of central to my research and I want to be able to use this over and over and over again. So what I'm actually going to do is show you a really time-saving feature called favorites. I'm going to select everything that's on the page right now. I can group them together. I'm actually not going to because I want to make it easy to edit them in the future. But I'm going to select everything and click this button up here that says favorite. Awesome. So you can see on the left side here now, there's a little one where it says favorites. If I click into that, I'm actually going to clear the canvas now so you can see this. You can see it showed up here. Now, I can reuse this over and over and over again. I've done it once and now I can just do it really quickly without having to spend that. I think we spent probably 15 minutes doing that. I can just drag it out as a single icon and use it again and again. Now, on top of that, here's like a real time saving feature if you want other people on your team to be able to use this. I can click this little button in the top left here, press share with your team. And now if I toggle between personal and team, you can see now everyone else on my team is also able to use this. So again, it's really like a time-saving feature. One person does it once, everyone in your lab or team can just use it over and over and over again. Makes it really quick and just multiplies how much time you'll save using BioRender, especially if you're if it's something like this that's central to your area of research. Awesome. So say maybe this is just kind of the start of my story. Really what I'm interested in is what's specifically going on in this signaling pathway and this interaction. This is another kind of little trick from our illustration team who's got years of experience doing things like these on a more custom basis. We have these things called callouts, where basically it's showing like a zoomed in version of what's going on here. So maybe actually I don't want to do it this way. We do have some kind of pre-drawn callouts that if you search callout, they'll show up. I'll do one of those in a moment actually. But in the meantime, what I'll actually do is I'll just insert a shape here. Let's do like a rectangle, putting this in a box. I'll actually do no fill color. I'll do a transparent fill so you can actually see what's going on in the background. And I'll change the border to a black or maybe like a gray, make it a bit less harsh. And then what I'll do here is I'll add an arrow showing, this is going into something else or showing the movement that, we're zooming in on it. And what I'm actually going to do here is now add a template in here. So I know I showed you before that you can use a template as a starting point, but you can also actually use them in your images. So if I want to add maybe a cell-to-cell interaction here, blank pathway, two-cell interaction, perfect. I'm just going to hit add to illustration. It's going to come in quite large, but I'm actually going to then put it on the side here, maybe do something like this. I'll actually also increase my canvas size. I'll do that a bit slower. As I said, you can change that at any point in the future. So if I go to canvas size here, I can just drag it out. Perfect. I'm going to take this whole section of it, and I actually am going to group these together at this point. Move it over, move this arrow over, and expand this a bit to take up a bit more of the screen. I'll move this over just a bit more. Perfect. Awesome. So now, again, like I said about templates, you can really customize these heavily. If I wanted to change the text, maybe I don't want it to be so generic and I'm about to put something even more generic on it, just call it protein A. And I'll change the size of that to make it fit. But yeah, they're fully customizable. Change it to whatever you want and it'll work for you. Perfect. Now, we did just get a question asking about if you can import your own assets and icons. For example, if you make them yourself in a different program. That's a great point and one I'll actually show here. Maybe I want to make kind of a multi-panel illustration that includes things like a CT scan, for example. I've got one here loaded up. You can see on the left side here, I just browsed down it, past favorites to the upload section. You definitely are able to import any of your own images. You can just hit upload files and it'll get added. You can also actually, I'll add our logo into it just to show you. You can also just copy and paste. So I'll take this one, I'll copy the image, and then I'll paste it in here with Command V. And that also gets added to the upload section. We'll delete this for now, just for the sake of clarity. I'll show you something else really quick. Awesome, so maybe I only want to show one portion of this multi-panel CT scan. I'm able to crop things just as you would in any other kind of illustration software. So maybe I only want to show this corner. Okay, let's apply that crop. Perfect. Then maybe I want to add some graphs in that I've done in other software. We do have graphs available in BioRender. They are more so designed for to show like general trends or what data should look like as opposed to import actual data into it. But you are able to import graphs from other software. Now, maybe I also want to show what's going on with this protein. So I'll add a kind of generic protein in here, maybe something like this. Let's throw it in. And this brings me to another really cool feature we have, which is our protein data bank integration. So we actually have a direct integration with the PDB. If you do work with crystal structures and the structure of the protein is very important to you, as I suspect it is to many of you, given that it seems like we had quite a few biochemists on the call. You're able to actually add a protein in direct from the PDB. If you have the PDB ID, I don't have one handy, so I'm just going to click one of the presets here. And it's quite customizable. So maybe I want to show it in this structure, or maybe I want something a bit more, something that looks a bit more like this, kind of showing the van der Waals style. I can change the colors of it based on, again, this is based on what's available in the protein data bank. So I can change it based on hydrophobicity or temperature or secondary structure or what have you. I'm actually going to go back and change it to this view. Maybe we want to show something like this. And apologies if this isn't entirely scientifically accurate. I hope it's gives you a pretty good idea of what's possible. But yeah, let's use this. And maybe this is a subunit of this generic protein I'm showing here. So now I'll use an actual call out. Let's add something like this in. I'll shrink that down a bit. Maybe it's this subunit right here. And I'll add this in. I'll right click it. Again, on that note of layers, you are able to arrange the layers. So I'll send this to front and add it there. And now it's just kind of a matter of resizing things, getting it all fitting together in a way that makes sense. And just like that, in about 25, 30 minutes, you know, I think this is a near publication ready figure. I'm going to pause here again. Want to see if anyone has any questions for us. It looks like Cindy has been answering some questions as we've gone along. So thank you, Cindy. Really appreciate it. Doesn't look like we really have any questions, so I'll just kind of go along here. Making sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, Chantel, that's a great question, actually. Chantel asked if you can save to PowerPoint. So that's a really good point, actually. So what happens now that I'm done with my figure, I'm ready to use it in something, and I want to get it out of BioRender? Well, let's take a quick preview here, make sure that everything looks good. Okay, perfect. So if I'm done with this, I'm going to go to export it. I can export it in multiple different file types, PNG, JPEG, or PDF. A couple different resolutions as well. I will export it as a PNG in 300 dpi. Awesome. And I'll just open it up here in Google Chrome. And there you have it. Now it's a PNG. I can import this into my PowerPoint or my poster or really any other place you might want to use this figure. Another really cool way to share these figures, if you don't actually need to export it out of PowerPoint, but you do want to share it with some of your teammates, maybe they want to be able to make some further edits to it, or maybe this is kind of the central dogma of the research being done in your lab. I can hit this share with button in the top right here. I'll click that. And I can send it to people directly via email. So if it's my colleague who maybe doesn't have a BioRender account, or I just want to share it with a single person, I just type in their email, hit send, and they'll get a notification that someone has shared a BioRender illustration with them. But I'm also able to share it with my team. So this is an even better way. When you do sign up, you'll be prompted to invite your team members to BioRender. We really recommend it. We find that people get a lot more value out of it when everyone in the lab is using it, again, as Jacqueline mentioned, kind of maintaining that standard language, standard visual language of research being done in your lab. So I'll send it to my team. And then if I go back to my gallery now, I'm able to, you can see now this illustration has this little icon on the top left corner. It says this illustration has been shared with your team. And on the left side here, if I go to my team gallery, it's available here for everyone else on my team or in my lab to now use as a template for their illustrations. So again, it's just another one of those real time-saving tricks. One person does it once, everyone can use it over and over and over again. Again, just really multiplies how much value you can get out of this platform. Now, there's one, I'll show actually another quick use case. We've got a bit of time left. Unless anyone wants to see something specific, if you do, please type it in. I'll go with let's go to our protocols section. I'll show you something. This is like I'm a big fan of this use case. I did some academic research in the past, and I know what a pain it is to follow a protocol that's like a page long, just words. So a lot of people find it really useful to create something like this for their protocols. Let's do maybe like a mass spec protocol. Something like this. Let's use that. So as I said, we have all these templates pre-drawn by our scientific design team. These are based on requests that we get often. So certainly if we're missing something, feel free to type it in the chat. Let us know what we can do to help. We're still constantly building our library. And on that note, actually, it brings up a good point. One really cool feature that comes with a paid subscription only is our custom icon requests. So you're able to actually, if you're browsing through the library and we don't have something that you're looking for, you're able to request a custom icon by clicking this blue button at the bottom here. Hit that button, tell us what you need. So whether that's a, I'm just gonna put gibberish in here. And then hit next. Give us a couple reference images so that our scientific illustrators have something to go off of. And they will reach out to you, let you know if they have any questions, and they'll be able to turn an icon around for you and add it to our library within a couple days. So this is really, really useful if you are doing any kind of like novel research, or maybe you just want to show a, I don't know, maybe you want your specific machine, just, in the case of a visual protocol, it makes it really easy to look at, look at a paper and then look around the lab and see exactly what that machine looks like. Like this is a Q Exactive, for example. We actually have a ton of different machines if you go to the machinery and tech section. So maybe what we actually want here is a, this one, maybe this is closer in look to the one that's in your lab. You just drag it out, add it in. And again, just makes it really easy, helps onboard new researchers into the lab that much quicker. Again, this is kind of the graphs section I was talking about, where it's not actual data, but it does really help to show general trends. So maybe I want to say, oh, this pink one should be lower based on what's going on here. Can really easily do so and make that modification on the fly. Awesome. So I think that covers the bulk of what I wanted to go over. A couple things to note. I know I mentioned it at the beginning, but we do have a really great support team. So if you do have any questions while you're walking through the software, definitely feel free to type in the chat box. Let us know how we can help. There's also an FAQ section if you do kind of have any smaller questions and you just want to search through it yourself. Cindy or Jacqueline, is there anything I'm missing here? I think I covered most of everything. I guess like some other kind of small housekeeping bits. You're able to organize your illustrations into folders. So if you do have specific projects you're working on, you can really easily stay organized. I know what a mess I'm sure this can be for many of you, or what a mess it might end up being. Another cool benefit actually of being an online software is that we keep version histories. So you're able to restore to any previous version of the image. I'll go to this other one actually because we didn't make many changes to that. So I can maybe I wanted to restore it back to when we just had this. Maybe, yeah, let's go here. I can just make a copy of it. And just like that, I can go back to where I was before. Now, yeah, I guess like a couple other cool features, kind of semi-related. I mean, we have hundreds and hundreds of protocols, so I really encourage everyone to browse through this just to, again, kind of see what we have for you, hit the ground running. And again, let us know if there is some other way we can help. One other cool thing I actually do want to show is our vaccine tracker. As a it's kind of a related project. I really encourage everyone to check this out. As I'm sure you all know, there are many vaccines for COVID-19 in development. So we kind of have developed this really comprehensive tracker to help you stay on top of, where these vaccines are, who's working on them, what their information is, as well as the kind of mechanism of action for them, or some additional information. So you can see if I click into the BCG vaccine, which is being trialed in for COVID-19 as well. We've got all the most up-to-date news on it. This is updated daily, I believe. At the very least, it's weekly, and it'll show you kind of everything, every organization that's working on it, countries involved, all the clinical trial numbers, and I can actually use this figure in BioRender if I was working to kind of communicate what's going on in the world to people who might not have the best understanding of science. I mean, there is kind of a big trend in the world of science denial or lack of understanding of science. So really these kind of visual diagrams help people understand what's actually going on. And to go back to that vaccine tracker, if you do want to stay up to date on things, definitely feel free to subscribe to our updates. We'll send like kind of a weekly update of what's changed, what's moved through the clinical trials, and any new vaccines that are in development. Awesome. So I want to take one final pause here just to give everyone kind of one last chance to ask any questions. Doesn't look like we had too many questions. Hopefully that's a good thing, and it was all pretty clear. Doesn't look like any more are coming in now. So with that being said, I do encourage everyone to go sign up for an account and try it out if you haven't signed up for an account already. And yeah, I really hope that you all found this very helpful. Hope that you're able to use BioRender to help communicate your research better, faster. And yeah, happy BioRendering, everyone. Really appreciate it. Appreciate you joining us today, that is.